Welcome to today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications. Now, let's dive into The Reunion Reckoning, a story that proves sometimes the best way to settle old scores is to let your childhood friend dig their own grave while you provide the shovel. Julia Harris sat in her car outside the Maplewood Community Center, staring at the banner hanging over the entrance. Maplewood High School Class of 2014 10-year reunion. She checked her phone one more time, rereading the text message that had brought her here tonight. The message was from Matt Davidson, her former best friend, and the reason she'd almost skipped this reunion entirely. Jules, can't wait to see you tonight. I have some amazing news to share with everyone. You're going to be so proud of your old buddy. Julia snorted at the message. Proud? The only thing she was proud of was the elaborate revenge plan she'd been orchestrating for the past 3 months. A plan that would finally give Matt Davidson exactly what he deserved. But to understand why Julia was plotting against her childhood best friend, you have to go back to where it all started. The great app theft of senior year. Julia and Matt had been inseparable since 3rd grade, growing up 3 houses apart and navigating school together. Julia had always been the creative one, teaching herself coding and developing innovative ideas. Matt was the social butterfly, charming, popular, and effortlessly good at making connections. Their friendship worked perfectly because their skills complemented each other. Julia would come up with brilliant ideas, and Matt would help her present them to the world with his natural charisma. Senior year, Julia had developed what she thought was a $1 million idea, a mobile app called Study Buddy that would match students with compatible study partners based on their learning styles, schedules, and academic strengths. She'd spent months developing the concept, creating wireframes, writing code, and documenting everything meticulously in a notebook she carried everywhere. The app was her baby, her ticket to a computer science scholarship, and her plan for starting a tech company after graduation. Matt had been her biggest supporter throughout the development process, helping with user interviews and feedback. "This is going to be huge, Jules," Matt had told her repeatedly. "You're going to change how students study forever." Julia had trusted Matt completely. They'd been best friends for almost a decade. Why wouldn't she trust him? That trust had been her biggest mistake. 3 weeks before graduation, Matt had approached Julia with exciting news. He'd been talking to his uncle, who worked at a tech startup in Silicon Valley, about Julia's app concept. "My uncle wants to meet with us over video call," Matt had said enthusiastically. "He thinks Study Buddy has real potential, and he might be able to help us get funding." The video call with David Davidson had gone amazingly well. He'd been impressed by Julia's concept and had asked detailed questions about functionality, target market, and monetization. David had asked Julia to send him all her documentation, wireframes, and code samples so his team could evaluate the technical feasibility. Julia had been hesitant to share everything, but Matt had assured her his uncle was trustworthy. "He's family, Jules. And besides, you have copyright on all your work. No one can steal an idea that's already documented as yours." Julia had believed him and sent David Davidson a complete package of her Study Buddy materials. 2 weeks later, Matt delivered devastating news. His uncle's company couldn't move forward with Study Buddy because the concept wasn't unique enough. Julia had been disappointed, but planned to continue developing the app independently after graduation. 1 month later, Julia discovered an article that destroyed her faith in friendship. Davidson Tech launches revolutionary study app, Buddy Match, poised to transform student learning. The article featured Matt Davidson as the young entrepreneur and founder of Buddy Match, standing next to his uncle David. Buddy Match wasn't just similar to Study Buddy, it was identical. Every feature, interface element, and algorithm Julia had conceived was present in Matt's revolutionary app. Matt had stolen Julia's exact documentation and presented it as his own original work. He'd even used Julia's exact phrases from her business plan, claiming them as his own insights. I realized that students weren't just struggling with the material, they were struggling to find the right people to study with. Matt was quoted as saying, using words Julia had written in her original concept document. The app launched with significant funding and media attention, while Julia started college with no scholarship, no startup, and no trust in anyone. Julia tried to fight the theft legally, but Matt and his uncle had filed patents immediately and had resources to fight challenges. When Julia tried to prove ownership, she was dismissed as a disgruntled former friend. The final insult came when Matt sent her a text offering to hire her as a junior developer to work on her own stolen creation. For 10 years, Julia built her career methodically, while Matt's success proved short-lived. Without Julia's creativity, he couldn't innovate, and Buddy Match eventually lost users to competitors before being sold for a fraction of its value. Meanwhile, Julia had become a senior software architect at a top tech company and had spent 2 years developing Connected, a revolutionary study platform that made her original concept look primitive. It was backed by prestigious venture capital and scheduled to launch 1 week after their reunion. 3 months before the reunion, Julia had reached out to Matt, re-establishing contact and listening to his job struggles. She'd casually mentioned working on interesting projects in educational technology and asked for his feedback as someone who'd been successful in that area. Matt had provided enthusiastic input on Julia's concepts, not realizing he was reviewing a nearly complete product. He'd become so excited that he'd started telling people about his potential involvement in a revolutionary new platform. Julia had also researched which classmates would attend the reunion, discovering that Jake Martinez and Sarah Chen, now tech journalists, would be there. The stage was perfectly set for Matt's downfall. Julia walked into the reunion and spotted Matt holding court near the registration table, regaling classmates with stories about his ventures. Among his audience were the 2 tech journalists. "Julia," Matt called out excitedly, "everyone, this is my oldest friend, Julia Harris, the one I was telling you about, who's working on the revolutionary education platform." "Matt was just telling us about the app you guys are developing together," said Jenny Walsh, their former class president. "Oh," Julia raised an eyebrow. "What exactly did you tell them about our project, Matt?" Matt launched into an enthusiastic description of their app, presenting Julia's work as if he'd been an equal partner. "The AI-powered matching algorithms alone are going to revolutionize how students connect," Matt said confidently. "And the personalized learning pathways will adapt to each user's needs in real time." Julia listened patiently, then asked, "Since you're presenting this as our joint project, what specific contributions have you made to the development process?" Matt looked confused. "Well, we've been collaborating on concept development, and I've been providing strategic guidance based on my experience with Buddy Match." "Right, your experience with Buddy Match," Julia said thoughtfully, turning to the journalists. "That was an educational app that launched about 10 years ago, but couldn't compete with newer platforms." "I remember that," said Jake Martinez. "Matt here was the founder." "That's right," Julia confirmed. "Buddy Match is what inspired me to get into educational technology." Julia asked Matt to tell the group about Buddy Match's development, getting him to commit to specific claims about his sole creative role. "So you came up with the original concept entirely on your own?" Julia asked. "Absolutely. I saw a gap in the market and developed a solution." "How impressive," Julia said admiringly. "And now you're ready to apply those same skills to our new project?" Exactly. I'm excited to bring my proven track record to this venture. Wonderful, Julia said, pulling out her phone. In that case, I have exciting news to share. She showed the group a polished product announcement for Connected, launching publicly next week. Wait, Jenny said, confused. This doesn't mention Matt at all. That's because Matt hasn't contributed anything to Connected's development, Julia said calmly. This is the first time he's seeing the finished product. As the group looked confused, Julia continued, Matt has a history of taking credit for other people's work. 10 years ago, he stole my original app concept and launched it as Buddy Match. She showed them the archived article about Buddy Match's launch, reading Matt's quotes that were directly lifted from her original business plan. Every idea he claimed to have created was stolen from my work, Julia explained, showing her documentation. The journalists were now taking notes, as Julia revealed Matt's current unemployment and pattern of taking credit for others' work at previous jobs. How did you know you were unemployed? Julia smiled. Because I still have friends at your former company. They told me you were let go for taking credit for other people's marketing campaigns. Jake Martinez looked up from his notes. Julia, would you go on the record about the Buddy Match theft? Absolutely. I've been waiting 10 years for this opportunity. Sarah Chen was already calling her editor about the breaking story. Matt stood silently, unable to defend himself without admitting to the lies Julia had exposed. I think our conversation about collaboration is over, Julia said pleasantly. Thank you for providing such a perfect example of how some people never change. The next morning, the story had gone viral. Jake's article about the Buddy Match theft included interviews with Matt's former colleagues who came forward with similar stories. Matt faced potential lawsuits and was publicly disowned by his uncle's company. But the fallout was more extensive than Julia had even anticipated. Within 48 hours, the story had been picked up by major tech publications, including TechCrunch, Wired, and The Verge. The headline, How One Entrepreneur Built His Career on Stolen Dreams, was trending across social media platforms, and Matt's photo was being shared alongside cautionary warnings about intellectual property theft in startup culture. The tech community's response was swift and unforgiving. Several venture capital firms publicly announced they would be implementing stricter due diligence processes to verify the origins of startup ideas. Industry leaders began sharing their own stories of near misses with fraudulent founders, and Matt's case became the poster child for everything wrong with Silicon Valley's fake it till you make it mentality. What surprised Julia most was the outpouring of support she received from fellow developers and entrepreneurs. Her LinkedIn inbox was flooded with messages from people sharing similar experiences of having their ideas stolen or their contributions overlooked. Many thanked her for having the courage to speak out publicly about intellectual property theft, something that often went unreported due to fear of retaliation or legal costs. The story also caught the attention of several universities who began reaching out to Julia about speaking at their entrepreneurship programs. They wanted her to share her experience as both a cautionary tale about protecting intellectual property and an inspiring example of how setbacks could fuel even greater success. Julia found herself becoming an unexpected advocate for ethical innovation and authentic entrepreneurship. Meanwhile, Matt's attempts to control the narrative were backfiring spectacularly. His initial response had been to claim that Julia was seeking attention and misremembering collaborative work. But when former colleagues began corroborating Julia's account and sharing their own experiences with Matt's pattern of taking credit for others' work, his credibility completely evaporated. His final public statement was a brief apology that satisfied no one and only served to confirm the allegations against him. 2 weeks later, Julia received an unexpected apology email from Matt, acknowledging his theft and taking responsibility for his pattern of deceptive behavior. But Julia felt closure not from his words, but from proving that talent ultimately triumphs over deception. Connected launched to widespread acclaim and became one of the most successful educational platforms ever created. Julia's story became a cautionary tale about intellectual property theft, and she later consulted on a documentary called Stolen Code that won awards at film festivals. Matt was featured in the film as a cautionary example, while Julia's story inspired aspiring entrepreneurs to protect their work and never give up on their dreams. 6 months later, Julia received a message from Jake Martinez asking if she'd consult on the documentary about intellectual property theft in the tech industry. Julia agreed, not to continue punishing Matt, but to help other young innovators protect their work. The documentary premiered at Tribeca Film Festival and won awards for its exploration of creativity, ethics, and justice in the digital age. Julia's experience became an inspiration for entrepreneurs who learned that while ideas can be stolen, the talent to turn them into reality cannot be faked. As Julia often said in interviews, the best revenge against someone who steals your dreams is to dream bigger and build something they could never have imagined. The reunion reckoning had become a masterclass in patience, strategy, and the ultimate triumph of authentic talent over fraudulent success. Thanks for listening to today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.